Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft and more. I'm your host Edith, and today this episode is all about the more of the show, and the guest for this episode is someone who has been on the show before, returning guest, thriller author and fellow podcaster Lisa Towles. Hello, Lisa, and welcome back to Book Lovers Companion.
Thank you, Edith. I'm so excited to be back here. I love your show, and I always have so much fun in these conversations.
Thank you. That's quite kind of you to say so. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And as I said in my introduction, today we're not here to talk about thrilling events, thrilling suspenseful plots, but we are here to talk about your new book, which is nonfiction, and the title is The Me Factor, Your Secret Weapon for Author Visibility. And it says, more or less on Amazon in the blurb, identity meets marketing intelligence. I often heard authors say, especially those who are independent, sometimes also the traditionally published ones, you have to wear more than one hat as an author. You have to wear the writer's hat, you have to wear the marketing hat, the editor hat, and so on. Here we're going to talk about marketing, what one doesn't think of, can do to be visible in this huge amount of books that are published every year. And Lisa, please, what can you tell our listeners, especially your fellow authors out there, about the me factor?
I guess there are so many things that I want to tell authors about the me factor, about their individual me factor, but really this book is kind of an extension of my coaching. I'm also a book coach. And so that doesn't mean that I'm a manuscript coach. I'm not an editor. I'm a good editor for my own work, but I'm not a professional editor. I'm a marketing, branding, strategy, path to publishing coach. Once you have a book, to help authors figure out what to do with it. And I think really what I want to do with this book is I want to reduce author fear about marketing. So after they've read this book, they get to the end and they think, oh, I can do this. If that happens, I'm the happiest person. I'm the happiest author in the world because I have reduced their fear and I've enhanced their own me factor, meaning their author identity. So that's one of my goals. And another goal is I want to reassure authors wherever they are in their publishing timeline that they don't have to do everything. You said that, Edith. You just said it. You have to wear a lot of hats. You do. You have to wear a ridiculous amount of hats. We're expected to be social media experts. We're expected to be marketers and promoters. And there's a difference in kind of the nuances of each of those pieces. And what I tell my coaching clients is to pick 2 social media profiles and post once a week. One week, one the next week, which is, really like against everything else you hear online. But if you do it consistently and intentionally reaching the right target readers, you're going to make an impact and engage with people.
You said you try to reduce people's fear, authors' fear they have when you think of marketing. What is in this special case their greatest fear? Is it the fear that it might be too much, or that they do not know anything about marketing at all?
I think it's all of those things. I've talked to authors who fear that they don't know enough about marketing to do it correctly, worrying about what the risk is. I think what you just said too is very realistic. Authors worry that that they're going to burn out on it. We have a finite amount of creative energy, and we don't want to be doing any of that. We want to be writing. That's all we want to do is write. All of the other parts of it, we don't want to be doing that. So, it really takes kind of a lot of discipline and a conscious decision. But I think about marketing, there's another fear about it that all of the marketing technologies and platforms change constantly. So it's a moving target. So you never feel like you're a master of any of it. And I think that's realistic. And I'm not telling authors to not care about that. I'm just kind of helping them sort of keep the right perspective, so that you're not drowning in the parts of the writing path that you don't want to do in the first place. Minimize those so that you can spend most of your time doing what you love, doing what you want to do, create, build worlds, build characters, and get them to the readers that will really care about them.
Is it also another fear that they might think, "Oh dear God, marketing also means a lot of money I have to invest to be seen out there." Is it also a fear?
I think so, and I think, you just said being seen. I think that's maybe the biggest fear that people have. I mean, like, when you've written a book and when it's in really good shape and you're about to send it out to publishers, if you want the traditional publishing path, it takes a lot of courage to put it out there and to have it read by literary agents and publishers. So having your work seen takes a lot of courage, and a lot of kind of self-actualization. So that compounds when you're talking about making yourself seen, putting yourself on camera like you and I are now on social media, making a video about, "Here's my new book. Here's what I think you'll like about it." I mean, that takes a lot of courage too. A lot of authors don't wanna do that. And, one of the main reasons why I wrote this book is because I felt like a lot of marketing books were leaving something out. They were making authors feel like they had to fake it to be effective on social media talking to readers. They had to pretend to be extroverted. They had to pretend to be a type A personality that likes talking about themselves. Many authors, most authors probably don't like to do that. And what this book is about is bringing your uniqueness into your marketing. You don't have to be someone else. If you're introverted and quirky, be introverted and quirky and bring that in, and you might find that there are readers that are also introverted and quirky that will connect with you because of that.
Good point, absolutely. You said there's a lot of things we have to unpack here. Also, what the things you mentioned. Uh, Branding, it's another one. You said you are introvert and quirky, and there is also always the question of also mentioned in the blurb, the branding. Question for me is, do I have to get a logo now? Although I'm introverted and quirky, and I have no idea what this is all about. Um, can I help, or can I use the help of AI these days? Is it feasible? Would you recommend it? So, what would be, oh, given the fact that you have written this book as someone who does book coaching and so on, what would you say are the steps, step by step? Which steps should one or could one follow who is, as you said, not someone who is outgoing and constantly on social media and doesn't have a clue what to do on social media? But can you give us a sort of a few steps which you would recommend for a new author he or she could do to be seen, as we said?
It's a great question, because you mentioned the word steps, and I think, I love math. I'm not good at math, but I love math, and so the term order of operations, I think, is relevant here. There's a certain sequencing that I think you need to follow to be able to effectively put yourself out there and connect with readers. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's about audience. Who are your particular readers? Who are the readers that need your books? Not that might be curious about them, but there's a special niche of readers that need your books in particular, any author. And I think the trick with marketing and branding is how to find them and studying them and understanding where they are and what they care about. So I think the sequencing starts with kind of a preliminary branding in terms of who are you as an author? And after you figure that out, with my coaching clients, I work on kind of a genre analysis. A lot of times that seems like a no-brainer, and a lot of times it's not. A lot of times we're wrong about it. So looking at your book and seeing which genre it fits into most closely according to industry standards. And once you have kind of the who you are um, and the genre, then you can look at audience insights. Who are the most likely readers who will enjoy a book like this? And then I build reader personas, three reader kind of examples of a type of reader. And I include demographic and psychographic features. Demographic is how old are they? Where do they live? What do they do for a living? Psychographics is why do they read? Where do they buy their books? What kinds of books are they willing to review? So psychographics is more like behavior and kind of when you have that understanding of those three readers, then I like to work on comps. What are some comparable authors and titles? And the reason why comps are important is because when you start reaching out to and targeting these specific reader personas, you want to give them what I call an emotional promise. You want to tell them, my book is likely to make you feel the same way that this book made you feel, because that's really what makes an impact on people, on readers. Like, one of my favorite mystery authors is Ruth Ware. I don't love every single book she's ever written, but I love a lot of her books, and they all, by and large, make me feel the same way. And that's why when she comes out with a new book, I'm probably going to buy it. I might even buy it before I read what it's about, because I understand her brand, what she stands for as an author, the types and kind of flavors of mystery novels that she writes, and she also seems like a lovely person. I've watched interviews of her, and so, like, she's reached me. I'm her target reader, and I'm probably gonna buy everything that she ever writes because of that, because of the emotional promise. I know how her books are likely to make me feel. The plots and the characters might be a little bit different, but it's gonna take me to a place that I know I want to go.
Hmm. Oh, that's quite a lot. So, speaking for yourself then, who are you as an author? How would you describe yourself as an author then?
Um, so The Me Factor is the first nonfiction book I've written in 20 years. I wrote a biography, and I also wrote a book on jazz many years ago. I'm a lifelong musician. But The Me Factor, again, it kind of came out of the coaching work that I do and that I've been doing for a long time, working with authors and just wanting to help authors. Lifting authors up is literally my purpose and my mission, because I didn't have mentors. I didn't have a community when I started. I was just kind of blindly, like, figuring it out for myself. And I want to be the guide as a coach, and through the Me Factor book, I want to be the guide for other authors that I didn't have. I want to use all of my mistakes and my failures and my hapless, let's try this and let's try this and see what works. And I wanna use kind of the intelligence and the wisdom that I gained from that crooked path to give that, to make it meaningful for authors so that they have a smoother path into the publishing field and a more powerful, memorable, enjoyable writing journey. So who I am as a thriller author, I worked in corporate America for a long time in communications and marketing. I worked for big Fortune 500 companies, and I got to see up close kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of those gigantic systems of. Usually, I work mostly in the tech industry. So tech is an important part of my brand as a thriller, but systems of power is also a really important theme. All of my books are about these kind of Venn diagrams of systems of power and how they converge into some kind of, like, horrible, ugly, nefarious technology or cover up at the heart of it. And there's an investigator who needs to peel back the layers of that onion to figure out the why. They've
Mm,
figured out what happened, but they wanna figure out the why so that they can bring a sense of balance. So that they can bring justice and apprehend who's at the heart of that scandal.
mm,
So I think so as a thriller author, I write books about espionage, corruption, deception, secrets, and nefarious systems of power. And there's also some kind of fringe tech in all of my books. And so the kinds of people that like my books typically are the types of readers who are interested in puzzles. They're interested in science. They're interested in STEM, in science, math, astronomy, tech, but they're also interested in secrets. They're the kind of people that like reading between the lines and looking to see what's hiding there and how they can learn something from it.
mhm. Okay. Number 2, you said genre analysis. When did you start your own genre analysis? Because you said you were flailing around at the beginning. You had no mentor. There was no one who told you what to do, what not to do as an author, how to make it. So how did you go about it doing your own genre analysis? What were the steps
Um,
you took there?
what is the word that you're saying before the word analysis?
Genre analysis.
I'm not under. I guess. Genre analysis. I gotcha. Yeah. Um. Uh. So. Um. I do use AI tools for some
Mm,
parts of the research. I use AI for a lot of different things. And it is very valuable in some areas of marketing, but
mhm,
in like for example, the branding piece, there's a worksheet that I give to authors. It's called an identity and visioning worksheet.
okay.
And it kind of identifies your why you're doing all this. I mean, like, why you wake up at 3 in the morning because you have an idea and you have to get it down before you forget it. Like, what is driving you as an author? And I think that's a really important, kind of path of inquiry. In terms of genre is about looking at industry standards
Mhm,
and looking at the synopsis of your book, looking at the length of your book, looking at kind of the prevalent themes and aligning them with what the industry would most likely call them.
mm,
So a genre analysis puts you in touch with the kind of language that you would use to describe your book if you were going to a if you were going to a writing conference and you were going to meet with literary agents.
mm,
Agents will want you to do that research to identify, correctly, which pocket your book fits in. You know, the way that literary agents, describe it, someone that I follow on Instagram, she had a great way of putting it. The genre analysis, that agents wanna see is they want to understand where your book lives.
mm,
And what that means isn't just what shelf it's on in a bookstore. It's also which types of readers are gonna reach for that book and be curious about it,
mm,
and what types of conversations your book is being pulled into. So where your book lives is a really important question, in the genre analysis to figure out, I mean, you might have written a mystery, but when you start, like, kind of analyzing it and peeling back the layers, you might have written an upmarket cozy mystery or there are a lot of different kind of subgenres, and to get it exactly right, I mean, it's not a hard science, I mean, there are a lot of assumptions that coaches have to make, when
mhm,
we're authors, and only the author really knows, I mean, but a lot of times when I work with a new coaching client, I'll have kind of like 2 or 3 different kind of genre/subgenre, combinations, and I show it to them, and sometimes they'll say, "Oh, that middle one? No, that's not me. I want nothing to do with that, and my book is not about that." "Okay, that's fine. Let's look at the other 2." And, the author is the compass. I mean, like, I'm the marketing expert that needs to figure out, how their identity can be a bridge to the readers that
mhm.
need them.
Mm.
Gonna give them the strategies of how to get there, or if they want a traditional publisher, I'll help them align with the types of agents that are looking for books exactly like theirs, and putting together an agent query that's gonna answer all of the questions they're gonna have before they even agree to read any pages.
Hmm. Okay, so we have maybe I got it wrong. So we have the author, him or herself, and they have to know who they are as an author, what they do. They have to know about their finished product, so to speak, their book. Where does it fit? Not just on the shelf, but with the industry as a large. Where can I put my book? Where is it subgenre wise, and so on? And also already looking at your future readers, so to speak, when you think of a
Mhm,
genre.
mhm.
Next step, as you said, is you need audience insight. I think maybe you can help me with that as well, because uh, I th- I think it's the hardest part, or maybe I'm too complicated in my thoughts. Maybe that's it, because I all think, okay, my audience, who are they? Who are my readers? Good question. How am I to know that? How am I supposed to know who my readers are? How can I find out about my readers?
You know because you're a reader yourself.
Oh,
So
okay.
look at the last 10 books that you've read. So if you've written a sci-fi thriller, for
Mm-hmm.
example, look at the last 10 books you've read. If you write sci-fi thrillers, there's a good chance that you also read sci-fi thrillers as at least some of the books that you
Mm-hmm.
read. Look at the last 10 books that you read that were sci-fi thrillers, and which one of those 10 reminds you the most of your book? So, your book might be written in the first person. So, find the last 10 sci-fi thrillers that you read, that were written in the first person. Now, let's compare your protagonist to that protagonist. Are they coming from the same place? Are they running from the same things? Do they have the same baggage, the same backstory? And you find books that are kind of similar, again, looking at that emotional promise, that your favorite sci-fi thriller that you've read in, like, the last 6 months, why was it your favorite? How did you feel in the beginning of it? Why were you curious about it, and
Mm-hmm.
what made you buy it? And then what did it leave you with? What did you feel like at the end of it? Did you learn more about the protagonist? Did it teach you something about yourself? Did it teach you something about science that you didn't know? So evaluating yourself as a reader is a great way, is a great way to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can look online, and you can look at books in your genre and read some reader reviews and see what reviewers are saying about books that are similar to yours. A lot of times they will tell you in those reviews what's important to them. Like, this book was way too long for this genre. So that teaches you something. Like, you're not going to use readers as a scientific method of understanding it, but it is a good barometer because
Mm-hmm.
reader preference and reader behavior. Readers are the whole purpose of why we write books. Like, we want to take them on a journey. We want to take them away and bring them on a path, and so that they will be interested enough and care about the characters that they keep flipping those pages.
Yeah, okay. I see. And okay, what do you tell them, an author who says, I do not read?
There are
It does, the people like that do
does
exist.
happen. It does happen. Yes, there are authors who say that they don't read, and I think it's really the best way to learn how to write. So, if you have an idea for a book, but you don't read for whatever reason, like, maybe you just don't have the temperament to sit down for like 2 weeks at a time and read a book, or there are a lot of reasons, and you can learn to write without that. You can take classes, you can work with a writing coach, you can work with a writing mentor, but I think I think it's a really essential part of, um, of what teaches you what's publishable.
Mm,
Not just what's being published right now. So, I mean, like, being a reader is a wonderful secret way of understanding what's being marketed in the literary world right
yeah.
now. I mean, we learn so much as readers, like cover design, for example. Cover design now compared to 10 years ago, we're seeing those kind of trends. And trends kind of come in and out. They're not constant, but a lot of times trends are based on reader preferences and reader behavior. So I mean, it's a really really important powerful metric. But yeah, if someone is writing books and they don't read. I mean, like, there are lots of different ways that you can read. Audiobooks, that's a way that you can read by listening, while you're driving or something. You can still um, connect with the story. You can still feel the shape of the mythology as it's unfolding and connect with those characters. So, audiobooks, that's probably what I would tell them.
Mm. Okay, and last but not least, you said a comparison to other authors, but including here is the emotional promise. The emotional promise for your future readers or your audience. Um, is that something you think about yourself before you started writing or before you start writing? Or is it something that just is the outcome of your work?
If you're asking me as an author, absolutely the outcome. Yeah,
Mm,
I tell authors to not write for a particular market, and I do that too as a writer. I write the books that want to come out. I don't decide, "Oh, I think I'm gonna write a book about this." I have a character, the book I'm writing now, my main character's name is Jessica, and Jessica started talking to me, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm writing another book now," and they just these people, they just arrive, and they just tell me that now we're gonna go on a journey. Okay, well, I'm definitely in. I'm going. So, no, I don't decide beforehand. Um Once the book is done, I have a much better picture of who the readers are gonna be because, by then I understand what happened in the story, what happened to my character, why that matters, and how that relates to readers and why they would care. I mean, that's really what we're doing is we're trying to make readers care as much about our main characters as we do.
mm,
And you might have all the elements there in your story, but the marketing translates that into marketing copy, meaning like, short bits of text, a line here, a line there. You know how a synopsis is
mhm,
using language to tell them very quickly because people are so busy. I mean, we literally have seconds to reach an audience, telling them very quickly what they might like about a book and what other books it's similar to.
mm. Um, you said you do not write for the market. Some authors do write for the market, specifically write for the market. I always think that's quite hard. I suppose I don't know, because other authors say, "Oh, I do not write for the market at all. I write what I would like to read." So,
Yep.
would you say there's a sort of middle ground somewhere for authors? Have
Yeah.
the market inside, but still do what you love to do, write the book you would love to read?
I love that. Write the book that you would love to read. Yes. I think it depends on what your goal is. I mean, like, there are authors that write business books like The Me Factor, and they're using them for a particular purpose. They're going to be a keynote speaker at a conference, and they want to get more speaking events, and so they'll write a short book about their business philosophy and to try to teach people something. And so for that, they are writing for a particular market. Nonfiction, it might be easier to do that, and I think it's fine. It just depends on what your goal is, but when you're starting to write, especially fiction, and you're writing for a particular market, let's say you want to get a literary agent and a big five publisher for a fantasy book. So you're looking at what the market specifications are, and you're going to write something that fits in this exact in this exact description. Well, the description might change. We are talking about it about how and how it's kind of a moving target. What publishers want, what agents, what literary agents want. It changes, and if you write for a particular market, by the time your book is done and edited and it's ready to go, the market might have changed a little bit. And so, writing what's in your heart and finding a market for it after, I think that's something that stays a little bit more true to your why, to what gets you up in the morning, what gets your fingers on the page,
Mm,
answering that kind of internal call.
mm, yeah. Because someone once said to me also when we were talking about the more in the book industry, before you start writing, take a look at what is going on out there. But I feel that authors do not think of that at all. They only think of that what's going on out there, as you said, after they have written it. Because
I
their need to write is for far more demanding than to take a look what's going on in the publishing industry or in the publishing market.
I I I think you're right that it has to be a little bit of both, you know, I mean, I think it can be helpful if when you're halfway done with your book and someone says, "Oh, you're writing a book? That's awesome. What genre are you writing in?" It's good to at least know, you know, I'm writing a sci-fi thriller, or
Mm,
I'm writing a cozy mystery, or I'm writing a noir, private investigation novel from, like, 1945, or, you know, like, it's good to kind of have, like, the general picture of the type of book that you're writing so that you can, tell your community about it, get readers excited about it, write something on your website about it. That's one mistake that I see a lot of authors making is they don't have any kind of author platform, um, until their book is finished. There's
mm,
still a lot that you can tell your community and your social connections about your book, even if it's not finished yet. You know, I mean, and there are author websites that you can create using free tools. And, you know, I think when you're looking for, especially a traditional publisher and literary agents, they're gonna look at what kind of author platform you have, if you have connections, if you have opportunities where you talk to readers, if you're part of a book club, or if you speak at book clubs. I think it's good to have kind of an overall view of what's happening in the publishing industry, again, because it changes so quickly. But, you know,
mm,
I think really what's most important is to honor what lives right here, and to honor that voice that's pushing the story out there.
mhm. So basically, what is important for authors who want to get published and also those who publish themselves as indie authors or self-publishing authors, it is important that you start with basic marketing during your writing process. As you said, give a little bit of a teaser, give a little bit of a spoiler. What can your future audience expect from you? We are not talking about people who write just for fun sakes for a, let's say, a fan fiction platform, as I did, because I wasn't thinking about getting published at all, just for the fun of it, you know? But if I want to become a published author, one way or the other, traditionally or independently, I have to be aware that I need to lay the foundations of my marketing process already during writing.
That's right. What I have in the me factor, kind of like that sequence that I was talking about.
Mhm,
Part 1 is about an author's identity, so the soul of the strategic author, the me factor, your unfair advantage, and then that emotional promise and what readers come
mm,
back for. Part 2 is finding your place in the market. That section is called the intelligence, market intelligence,
mhm,
audience ins and market gaps to find out where you fit. Building the author brand is the next stage. I call that the strategy, kind of,
Mhm.
where it comes from, your strategic messaging, and how to show up consistently. And then there's a diagnostic section so that you can look at what's working so far and what's not, and to kind of change if you need it. And then finding your readers that's about social media. That when you've done that, kind of the audience um, insights in the reader personas, that's how to find your readers. What platforms are they going to? Where are they buying their books so that you can
Hmm.
create social media content that reaches them? And then the human connection and kind of beyond the page. And then also I have kind of a 90-day sort of, a 90-day check back. And in each chapter, I have a what section, a why, a how, a calibration section so that you can
Mhm.
see if it's working or not, and then a workroom section where you can try it right there in that section. So every chapter has that same kind of structure. So this is not a marketing checklist, it's really a framework.
Mhm.
And the style of it is not really business book-ish, it's more kind of encouraging and validating and comforting for authors because that's the kind of person I am, and that's the kind of coach I am too.
Mhm. Mhm. Here we are back again to the branding. And I was flippantly saying, do I need a logo as an author? Uh, how would you describe then your branding as an author? What has one to do to create your brand as an author? Because maybe that's just me. When I think brand, I'm thinking about this logo, and here we go. I know what it is, this is all about. When you see uh uh, the apple, you know what we're talking about. You do not need to say the words, you just see the logo, and we all know what it is all about. Or I don't know, when we think of here, probably also as well in the United States, the shell uh, of a shell, we're talking about petroleum industry and whatnot, oil and so on. So, but what about the author? What is his or her brand? How can I imagine that as a newbie, a complete newbie?
So here's my answer to that. I love your questions, Edith. Uh, Here's my answer to your branding question. What we want as authors is to be more than just visible. We want to be memorable. That's the whole point of branding is we wanna be memorable to readers. So you can do that by sure, by creating a logo and putting it in the corner of all of your TikTok videos. You can do that because then people will remember you. You can have an email signature. So I just fell in love with someone's email signature one time, this wonderful fantasy author, her name is Wendy Anderson, and she had the most beautiful email signature, and she told me how she created it and who she got to do that, and that person is Tatiana of Vila Design, and she designs all my book covers now, so that was a great connection to make, but her branding was beautiful. She's a fantasy author, and she had an email signature that looked like a fantasy author. Um, you can have branding colors. My kind of branding colors, if you go to my coaching website, it's navy blue and kind of a yellowy gold sort of. And, like what I'm wearing today, like a light blue button down, kind of corporate looking shirt, that's my brand. I mean, like I have a very conservative, I'm from the East Coast originally, even though I live in California, but my dress style, whenever I have a speaking engagement, I always wear a suit, a business pantsuit, usually navy blue, or gray or royal blue, and those are my colors, and that's my style. I'm not very stylish, but that is not being stylish is my style, kind of like corporate elegant, I guess you could call it, and that's part of my brand, so I think brand can include behavioral aspects. I think, brand can also include clothing. It can include kind of also the tone and the style with which you talk to readers. So my brand is, I mentioned that the me factor, that the style of it, it's not written as kind of like a cold business methodology. It has a very warm, encouraging, validating style because that's part of my brand. That's part of my personality. I'm a very connective, kind of comforting person, and that comes across. And another reason for that is that marketing can be scary and it can be bewildering. And I wanted to make this content um, consumable by authors so that they don't get 3 chapters into it and say, "Oh my god, I can't do this." I want them to say, "Oh, this is easier than I thought. I can do this." That's what I want. So I think it's all about finding ways to be not just visible to the readers who matter, but to be memorable by them too. And I think the first way of doing that is to be visible and memorable to yourself. And that's that identity envisioning piece. Why do you write? Why do you write what you write? What keeps you coming back to that empty page and what's pushing you there day after day? And it's a really fun and rewarding question to ask and answer. It makes you more intimate with your creative soul that's driving these books into the market, and it makes you feel more powerful as a creator, understanding what you do and why and what people will care.
Okay, fascinating. And being memorable and conveying your brand. And we all know it is important these days to convey our brand as authors. As we said at the beginning, there's this huge amount of books published every year. And one way to do it, as mentioned before, also is social media. And social media can also be incredibly scary.
Mhm.
So, again, authors are usually people who sit in their own room. It's a sole endeavor, writing a book, and then they have to get out there. Even
Mhm.
maybe during the writing process, as we said, we have to lay the foundations for our books, for the marketing process. So, how can you, as you said, you try to reduce fear in the authors, especially when we
Mhm.
talk about marketing. How can we reduce fear when we think about the scariness of social media? What do you recommend?
If you don't like being on camera, you don't have to be on camera on social media. You can use TikTok and be part of their vibrant book talk community. Book talk is just kind of a collection of bookish people on TikTok. Um, you can create content on TikTok, and it could be a still photograph. It could be a still photograph of you holding your book like this. Or it could just be a video of you've seen videos where you're just kind of flipping through the pages and showing like a certain page in a book. It could also be just a static page that has some text from your book on it, quoted as kind of like an excerpt so that people can see it. Or it could be an image of your writing habitat. I mean, readers love behind the scenes photos to understand how you create, where you create, what your habits are, what your schedule is. If you if you hold yourself to writing 3,000 words a day, or if you just kind of write whenever the mood strikes you. Readers want to know that. They're looking for the personality behind just the author's name. And I think when they make buying decisions, they're more likely to buy from someone that they know, someone who they understand, and they want to know more about them. Again, they're not just visible, they're memorable at that point. So yeah, if it's too scary to be on camera, you don't have to be on camera. Even on TikTok, even on Instagram, you can get around a lot of those expectations. And you hear a lot of stuff from a lot of social media guidance that says you have to post consistently. You have to post 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on weekends, oh my God, you'd have no energy left to write. You don't have to do that. Once a week is fine if you're intentional. And if you're creating content for a specific reader and you're doing it consistently every Monday, that's completely fine. So So you don't have to listen to all that guidance about posting all the time. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to put a check in every single box. But if you want to participate on social media, on Instagram and TikTok, for example, the advantage is that's where all the readers are. So that's a way to reach readers and hear what they're saying about other books and get them interested in your books too. So there are advantages.
Mm, absolutely. And it might also be helpful to post pictures of your writing assistant, meaning your furry overlords. Because as I have discovered as a podcast host, if I post videos of our furry overlords, they get more views than I ever will. So it's
Completely.
much.
I completely agree, and I was looking for Coffee and Marmalade, my 2 cats, and Marmalade especially is loved by Instagram and TikTok, and he's not here right now, I can't find him, but yeah, I'm sure he's very busy planning, birds and squirrels that he wants to chase and harm, but yeah, that's right. So, I mean, like, taking that to heart, Edith, our pets are, our companions that kind of keep us company on the lonely writing path, and showing those personal details of who lifts us up and who makes us feel supported, that's another part of the story of you as the author, that kind of behind the scenes look. Who's writing these books that I love? What is she like? When does she write? Where does she write? What's coming out next in her life? And, like readers will want to know that about you. And there are ways of sharing it that don't have to be scary. You don't have to have your face on camera all the time or at all if you don't want to. And I think there's a lot of fear about saying the wrong thing on social media. And if you post something on social media, if it's your content that you posted yourself, I think every platform lets you go in and edit it. If you spelled something wrong, you can edit it and you can change it.
Mm. There's also the fear often as you said, camera shy. If you're camera shy, you can also use AI these days. I mean, hate it or love it, but it might be helpful as well when you work on your marketing strategy. Wouldn't you agree?
I think AI can be wonderful for marketing, like images of your books and creating something that has like your book in the middle with like, kind of all of the sort of reasons why readers would like it. You can use AI tools to create graphics like that. I mean, you can also create them for free in Canva.
Mm,
That's how I do them. But yeah, I think it's all about what you're willing to reveal about yourself. And again, that's your me factor. I mean, like you're either comfortable sharing who you are about your book and reaching the readers who are going to buy it. And if you're not, then that's okay. You can work toward that. If you're not ready to reveal who you are as an author to readers in your community, that's okay. The more you write and the more you connect on social media, you will build up that confidence. But I don't think that there's a right way or a wrong way of doing it. There are gradations,
mm,
and we're always studying them. I mean, like I post something on social media, and it might be something that I just threw on the platform without thinking about it very much, and it might get a lot of likes and a lot of comments and a
mm.
couple of shares, and I think, "Wow, I wasn't even thinking about that." And the ones that I, like, very precisely calibrate get nothing. So, sometimes you just never know. It's not an exact science, but I think it's important to be curious about it and to keep learning about what readers want and like and expect, and that's at least a part of the process.
Mm. And there's also the fact that there are quite a lot of podcaster out there these days, and you can do that as well even before your book is out.
That's right. Yes. I think the idea is to get people curious about it before it comes out. Years ago, people used to say that someone had to hear about something 7 times before they would buy it. Now I think someone has to hear about something 30 times before they'll even be willing to click on something to learn about it. I mean, like, buying it, that's a lot more, but, I mean, there's a lot that's coming at us all the time, and we need to kind of filter it for the things that are really going to keep us feeling connected and interested. So there's
Mm.
a filtering that we go through just as consumers that readers are gonna go through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to beat my own drum, I mean, the authors out there, you do not have to do the video experience. I mean, my guests always have the choice. If they do not like the video, we can always do just audio.
Mm.
So all you have to
Mhm,
do is talk to the host. So
mhm,
I'm always for doing what my guests feel comfortable with.
that's awesome.
So
Well, you're a very kind, you're a very kind and generous host, Edith, and you do a wonderful job with your wise, insightful questions, and I always feel so welcome when I come here, and you do so much for authors, so I just appreciate it, and I recognize you.
thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Absolutely. I try to give my best. And one more question, Lisa. Um, I've asked it, or I've spoken about that with Terry on our Terry and Edith show, and given the fact that you talked about the reader as something you have to keep in mind as an author as well, what would you say is the future of reading?
Audiobooks, according to all of the trending that I'm studying, are still exploding and not slowing down. So readers' appetite for audiobooks, it just makes it easier for them to consume them so that you don't have
Mm,
to physically hold a book. Um, I think ebooks, Kindle books are gonna continue to be very important to readers. I mean, I haven't studied the statistics, consistently lately, but that's just what I'm seeing, and that's what I feel too. That's how I use books. I listen to audiobooks and, I don't have a Kindle right now, but I have the Kindle app on my
mhm,
iPhone, and I think I have, like, 500 books on there, and I read them on my phone, and it's something that I can read, at night in bed without, keeping my husband up if he's sleeping, and it's convenient. If I'm in a waiting room, I can just pick up my Kindle and can pick up my iPhone and read something on my Kindle app. So I think audiobook and Kindle are gonna continue to be really popular. In terms of print books, I'm not sure about that. I'm gonna continue as an author producing my books as print books because I know that there are a lot of readers that like that, and I also publish some of my books in hardcover too, because the print is a little bit larger, and it's kind of a heftier feel to it, and I think there are some readers that really like those, so I still buy hardcover books because I like the way I feel. I like the way they feel.
mhm. Same here. Same here. I mean, as for the audiobooks, would you say it's a good idea for authors to think of that as well when they write their books already? Because if you are an independently published author or a self-published author, it might get costly. But is that something you would absolutely recommend to keep in mind?
I think it's definitely something to consider. It does come at a cost. Some traditional publishers do offer audiobook as a publishing platform for their authors, but, I think it is definitely something to consider.
Mm,
I know some authors who are using AI to narrate their books, and I also know some authors who are narrating their own books too. They're getting the technology so they can do that.
mm,
Uh, so I think that's a good idea. I don't have an audiobook version of the Me Factor yet, but I'm thinking about it because I know people like audiobooks, so that might be something that's coming in a few months, but, I don't know. We'll
mm.
see.
Okay. Good for you. I mean, I'm the complete wrong audience for audiobooks, I'm afraid. I can't do it. I've tried it. I really tried
Oh,
it, but I
really?
can't do it.
It's personal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've tried it during my daily commute to work, but turned out nope, not for me. Absolutely not for me. I can listen to podcasts, but I can't listen to audiobooks.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Interesting.
Yeah, it's simply not for me. And I do enjoy, as you do, my Kindle app, absolutely, because it's the
Mhm.
easiest and fastest way to get to my books, and it's even sometimes cheaper, especially when I read my books in English. It's easier to get them faster,
Right.
cheaper.
Mhm.
But I do enjoy my paperbacks.
Yeah, me too.
I can't go without them completely. It's not
Mhm.
simply not done. Simply not done.
Mhm. I can't walk through an airport, even if I'm traveling somewhere, even if I have 5 books stuffed in my suitcase, I can't walk through an airport without buying, like, 2 or 3 books. I can't do it. Yeah, because I I wanna have a lot of choices on the plane, and I never know, like, what I'm gonna feel like reading, and, they're books, I love them.
Yep, yep.
Book
It might
Lover's Companion, of course you understand this.
Yes, of course I do. And it might become a question of space these days, I'm afraid. But I absolutely agree with you there. You have to
Mhm.
take away my wallet especially when I'm in London, going to force, take away my wallet. It's the best way to keep me safe there. Lisa, absolutely fantastic to talk to you, to hear from you as a book coach what authors, upcoming aspiring authors can do. But Lisa, is there anything else you would like our listeners, fellow authors, readers to know? What else would you like to tell them?
If they're curious about me as an author, but they're not really interested in a nonfiction book and they're curious about my thrillers, they can find those, on Amazon and from all retailers or on lisatowles.com. And, conversely, if they're not really interested in thriller fiction, but they are interested in kind of more of the me factor and those marketing and branding strategies, my coaching website is storyimpactconsulting.com, and that will show them all about what I do and my literary magazine and my podcast and everything I do for authors.
Splendid. Wonderful. Thank you. And it was fascinating to learn from you what it is you have to keep in mind as an author, as an aspiring author, the steps and how important it is for authors to not just be afraid of the huge hat that might weigh you down before you even start thinking about it. So, Lisa, thank you very much for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Edith. It was a pleasure for me as well. Lovely to see you again, and thank you for everything you do for authors and readers. I appreciate you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Please don't go away. Wait for me in the green room. I will be with you shortly.
Okay.
Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as my guest and I did. For all the aspiring authors out there, please get your copy of The Me Factor, learn more about marketing, learn more about branding. It will come handy. It will be useful for you. It will help you to be seen and to get your audience and your book sales up. So I do hope you will tune in for another episode. Until next time.